Good evening. I want to try to do this briefly. I got a letter from a mechutzif, somebody that has no scruples, and he addresses the letter from the address of Esha Torah, and I found that that's a lie, and so he just wants to go ahead and try to either needle me or try to irk me into saying things that are inappropriate. But the issue needs to be addressed. He sent me a letter. It's a translation of the words of Rav Feldman from Baltimore, in which he issues his opinion that the Lubavitchers who have an outlook that's against the Torah, that their shechita is possible. And although he doesn't extend it to the Mishichists, nonetheless, he says that these are people that you can't listen to, and you're not supposed to, they're not b'nei Torah, etc., etc. And therefore, this mechutzif wants to tell me that because all the Lubavitchers are Mishichisten, therefore, we really shouldn't trust them. That's what this pseudo-Talmud Chacham wants to show me. So let's go ahead and examine what Rav Feldman said and see if it is true or not. Rav Feldman said that the belief in a Mashiach who is deceased is only according to one opinion in the Gemara in Sanhedrin Tzadik Chesamid Beis. And only a person who's dead, who's like the Nielish Chamudis. And therefore, if the Lubavitchers are believing that their Rebbe is Mashiach, even after he's dead, then they're people who are away from the pale of Yiddishkeit of some kind. I'm not a Mashiachist. Everybody knows that. But to say that it's only the Gemara in Sanhedrin that Mashiach could come from the dead is a mistake, because it's Yerushalmi in the second chapter of Brochus, and it happens to be the opinion of the majority of the Rabbonim of the last generation of the Yerushalmi, the generation of Avai and Rava. They say that Mashiach is David HaMelech. David HaMelech at that point had died 1100 years earlier. So Mashiach, according to the majority of the Moroim in Eretz Yisrael, could be from the dead, but they hold that it should be David HaMelech. In the Bavli, it disagrees. Rav Yehuda says the name of Rav, that it's not going to be David. And Rav Pope questions this based upon the teachings of the Chachamim of Eretz Yisrael, that it's based upon a pasuk in the Navi. V'avdi David nasi aleim leil, it's a pasuk in Chutzpa. It's a verse in the prophet Ezekiel. So how could Rav disagree with a verse that's in the prophets? So Abaye answers him that David will truly be a Nasi, a prince, but he will be sort of like the second in command. Abaye does not negate Rav Papa's assertion that King David HaMelech will rise again and could be the Mashiach. Abaye rather diverts this to saying that David will rise, but he won't be the Mashiach because we'll get somebody else to be Mashiach. Because the halacha has to be like Rav, because Rav is the Rebbe of Bavel. And the other opinion, that it has to be King David, is the opinion of the Amoraim in Eretz Yisrael. We paskin like Rav, but it is clear that Abaye also agrees that Mashiach could be from the dead. So it's not just one Gemara Sanhedrin, it's two Gemaras. And it's also the conclusion of the Gemara Sanhedrin, Tzadik Chesed Beis. And then Rav Feldman brings the Rambam, that the Rambam says that if he died, he can't be the Mashiach. Without going into extensive arguments, the Rambam is not addressing the possibility whether Mashiach could be from the dead, because the Rambam in Halacha doesn't deal with miracles. As he says in chapter 12 of the Laws of Kings, the world will continue to exist as it always did. There's not going to be anything radically new. Mashiach is not coming to show you great tricks. So therefore, since the Rambam says in Halacha that we don't deal with miracles, could be. Rambam doesn't negate the possibility, but he says it doesn't have to make miracles. If that's the case, a Mashiach who rises from the dead, that's a miracle. He's not going to deal with that. It's not something that Halacha deals with. That this is a possibility is further buttressed by the fact that the Rambam criticizes Christianity for believing in a God other than the Creator. That's number one. Number two, for negating the mitzvahs. Number three, for causing all of the harm to the Jewish people. Mashiach is supposed to come and save the Jewish people, not harm them. He could have added a fourth, that Mashiach cannot be from the dead. He doesn't do that in the argument. In that same halacha, when he talks about Mashiach who was killed, it's a proof that the Rambam does not negate the possibility Mashiach could be from the dead. He doesn't criticize them for that because it's a Gemara. It's not just a Gemara. Sanhedrin is a Gemara in Yerushalmi Brachos. And the reason for the Rambam's language is totally different. There's an opinion that wants to say that there will no longer be a Mashiach, because Chizkiah should have been Mashiach. King Chizkiah was supposed to be Mashiach. That's what the Gemara says. And since Chizkiah messed up, and he's supposed to be Mashiach, there could be no other Mashiach. So the Rambam proves by illusion that Chizkiah was supposed to be Mashiach in his generation, but 3 generations later, Yoshiyahu, who was his grandson, was killed, was murdered by Parah Nechoy. And he was called by the prophet Jeremiah. Yirmiyah called him Mashiach Hashem, the Messiah of God, the anointed of the Lord. So you see from there that Mashiach is not an individual. Mashiach could be any king, whether it's Chizkiah or Yoshiyahu. Any king of Malchus Beis David could be Mashiach. That's what he's referring to. Don't despair that if a person says he's Mashiach and he dies, that there won't be a Mashiach. There'll be a Mashiach. It may not be him, it'll be somebody else. So you'd ask, why doesn't he talk about resurrection? The answer I told you is because the halacha does not deal with miracles, but the possibility exists, especially if you hold like Rav that there will be miracles. The bottom line of that is that there is nothing in Torah perspective that negates the possibility Mashiach could be from the dead. And concerning his critique that the Rebbe can't be compared to Daniel Ish Chamudis, I'm not going to say the Rebbe was as great as Daniel. I'm not going to say that. I can say that the Rebbe's conduct was examined from every particular angle by the Chassidim. And not just his personal conduct, the blessings he gave, the Ruach HaKodesh that he had. I'm What can I tell you? I'm a person that believes what he sees. I saw miracles from this man. And everything he told me personally on my personal life came true exactly as he said. Exactly, not a deviation of anything. So, is it possible that he was like a prophet? Yeah, it was possible he was like a prophet. Fact is, he was not known even by the Chassidim. His conduct, his knowledge, his Ruach HaKodesh was totally unknown. Only later on, after he died, the extent of his knowledge, the extent of his Ruach HaKodesh, the extent of his concern for Klal Yisrael, explains why Chassidim revered him so much. But I want to address a third issue, another issue which Rav Feldman addresses in his letter. There were people who are deranged in Lubavitch. They read a certain sikha and announced to the world, Yichi Adonenu, Boireinu, our Creator, or Elokeinu, our God. And of course, these people are deranged. It's against the Torah. But to passel somebody that he is an Eved Avodah Zarah, you have to have the person be warned. You also have to have him worshiping the Avodah Zarah. You say, well, he went ahead and he declared a tzaddik his God. So you have to examine the rules of Avodah Zarah to see if it really fits into the classical Avodah Zarah. The Rambam says if anybody worships any entity, an angel or any star or any individual creature other than the Creator, that's an idolater. The key word here is other than the Creator. The point is that these people are deranged and they think that the Rebbe is a channel for God, and hence God reveals God's self through the tzaddik, and therefore the tzaddik is identified with God. Whatever that means. But that happens to be a true concept. Ramban al-Torah quotes the Chazal in Parshas Vayishlach, Vayikra Loi Keil Elokei Yisrael. Rashi says that Yaakov called the altar that he built in honor of the God of Keil, who is the God of Israel. Ramban says no. Ramban says Vayikra Loi. The God of Israel called Jacob Keil, Almighty. How can he call a human being Almighty? It says that tzaddikim are similar to the Creator. Just as the Creator creates worlds, the tzaddik can create worlds. Just as the Creator blesses, the tzaddik can bless. Lest you think this is just an individual opinion, the Chazal say that Moshe Rabbeinu was called Ish Elokim, Mechetzi L'mayla, Elokim, Mechetzi L'mata Ish. Moses, from his waist up, was Elokim, God, and from his waist down, he was a man. What does that mean? I don't know what it means. It means, though, that he was a channel for God. Chazal further say that in the future, that the angels who say Kodesh, 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 Havai Tzvokis, will say the same thing for every tzaddik. They'll say to every tzaddik, Kodesh, 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 Hashem Tzvokis. How can they say Kodesh, 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 the same thing that they say for the Creator? And the answer is that the tzaddik will become the channel of the Creator. The tzaddik will be unified with God in their consciousness, because God is everything. and therefore the revelation of godliness that will come from the tzaddik, the angels will respond, Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. Which means not that the human being is God, but the human being is one with God and communicates that oneness, that awareness of God to others. And that's what this line of thinking is. That a tzaddik is like a pure copper wire for electricity, in this case for the presence of God, but the tzaddik is a complete channel for the awareness of God. That is what is meant in all those disturbing sichos that people make a big deal out of. Now, if somebody would have called Jacob, God calls Jacob Kael, Almighty God. If somebody would say Jacob is Elokeinu, is our God, he'd be deranged, but he wouldn't be an Eved Avodah Zarah. The reason is because that which Jacob is Kael, Almighty, isn't that he is a separate Almighty from God. He's a channel through which God is manifest. Moshe Rabbeinu is a channel through which God is manifest. The tzaddikim in the future will be a channel through which God is manifest. And that is also the explanation of several other Maimor Rizal that have this as a basis for their what seems to be a radical statement. A tzaddik is not separate from the Creator. A tzaddik is one with his Creator. That's why it says the Ahavis Hein Hein Amerkava, the chariot, the divine chariot, are not the angels on high, not the spheriotic system, but rather they are the patriarchs. How is the patriarch a chariot for divine? The answer, the patriarch were totally devoted to God, and they become the channel of revelation. And so he's not worshiping somebody other than the Creator. He is worshiping the Creator vis-a-vis his revelation through the tzaddik. That does not make him idolater. It makes him deranged, because you don't say those things. In the future, when these things will be manifest, every tzaddik, the angels will say Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh Havayit Tzvokos, but nobody will say Elokeinu to the tzaddik. They will say that there's a revelation of God that's there, and therefore we have to respect the revelation of God that is present. I hope I clears it up for the Mechutzev. But clearly, I am agreeing that they're deranged, but they're not Avdei Avodah Zarah. Because if somebody would have said that about Yaakov Avinu, you wouldn't raise an eyebrow. You would say he's crazy, but you wouldn't call him an idolater. Just leave it this way. The people who believe that the Rebbe is still the Mashiach are entitled to believe that. I don't say that. I don't know that to be true. Is it possible? Yeah, it's possible. Will it be that way? I don't care. I hope Mashiach comes. And if it's going to be the Rebbe, wonderful. And if it will be somebody else, also wonderful. Whoever Mashiach is, let him come.